You are not afraid of the ocean. You're afraid of what's below it. Because the deeper you go, the less life looks like life, and the more it starts to look like something that shouldn't exist at all. Just beneath the waves, everything feels familiar. Fish. Dolphins. Sunlight. Blue water stretching into the distance. A world we think we understand. But descend just a few hundred meters, and the rules begin to break. Light dies. Pressure crushes. Food vanishes. And evolution stops playing nice. Down here, creatures don't survive by being fast or strong. They survive by becoming unrecognizable. Animals turn transparent. They erase themselves from reality. Others grow mouths larger than their bodies. Some fuse to their mates permanently. Some glow to hunt. Others glow to disappear. And some become so black they absorb almost all light, so when you shine a spotlight on them, they don't reflect it. They swallow it. We've explored more of Mars than we have of our own deep ocean. Less than 5% of this world has been seen. And there's a reason. Because the deeper you descend, the more evolution reveals what it's capable of when pushed to the edge. When food is rare. When darkness is eternal. When survival demands solutions that look like nightmares. Tonight, we're going down. Through the sunlit surface. Into the twilight. Past the midnight zone. Across the abyss. And into the deepest trenches on Earth. And by the time we reach the bottom, you'll understand something unsettling. The deep sea doesn't just contain terrifying creatures. It creates them. Now imagine descending into that same ocean. Down, down, down into the darkness below. What you'll discover is that the deeper you go, the more the creatures you encounter will challenge everything you thought you knew about life on Earth. We've explored less than 5% of our oceans. We know more about the surface of Mars than we do about what lurks in the deepest parts of our own planet. And there's a reason for that. The deeper we go, the more we encounter creatures that seem designed by nightmares rather than nature. But here's the terrifying truth, they're not random monsters. Every horrifying feature, every nightmare-inducing adaptation serves a purpose. The deep ocean doesn't just harbor scary creatures by accident, it actively creates them. The deeper you go, the more extreme the conditions become, and the more extreme the solutions life finds to survive. Today, we're going to descend through the layers of the ocean, from the sunlit surface to the crushing depths of the deepest trenches. And as we do, you'll discover why each zone produces creatures more terrifying than the last. You'll learn why evolution, when pushed to its limits, creates beings that look like they've crawled out of our worst nightmares. The ocean has 5 distinct zones, each one deeper and darker than the last. Each zone presents new challenges that life must overcome to survive. And each zone's solutions become progressively more unsettling. So take a deep breath of surface air, because we're about to discover why the deep sea is the closest thing to an alien world we have on Earth. And why the creatures that call it home are the stuff of legends and nightmares. Let's start at the surface, in what scientists call the sunlight zone, the top 200 meters of the ocean where sunlight still penetrates. Here, life seems relatively normal, even beautiful. Colorful fish swim in schools. Sea turtles glide gracefully through the water. Dolphins leap and play. This is the ocean we know, the one we see in documentaries and visit on vacation. The creatures here look familiar because they live in familiar conditions. There's plenty of light for photosynthesis, so plants and plankton thrive, forming the base of complex food webs. Temperatures are warm. Pressure is manageable. Life here follows rules we understand. But even in this welcoming environment, we get our first hints of what's to come. Take the great white shark, a perfect predator, yes, but still recognizably, fish-like. Its teeth are sharp, its size intimidating, but it's built along familiar lines. A streamlined body, fins, gills. It's scary in the way a wolf or tiger is scary, dangerous, but comprehensible. Or consider the giant manta ray, with its enormous wingspan and alien grace. Impressive, certainly, but it's a gentle giant, filtering plankton with its massive mouth. Even the most imposing creatures of the sunlight zone follow patterns we can understand. But as we prepare to descend deeper, it's worth noting something important. Even here, in the most hospitable part of the ocean, life is already showing us glimpses of the bizarre. The Portuguese man-o-war drifts at the surface with tentacles that can stretch 100 feet and deliver excruciating stings. The vampire squid, well, we'll come back to that one when we reach its true home in the depths. The point is, even in the sunlight zone, the ocean is preparing us for what's coming. It's giving us a taste of the strange adaptations that become necessary for survival in harsher environments. But compared to what we're about to encounter, the creatures of the surface are practically cuddly. So let's say goodbye to the familiar blue world above and begin our descent into darkness. Because 200 meters down, everything changes. Welcome to the Twilight Zone, stretching from 200 to 1,000 meters deep. This is where our journey into terror truly begins. Here, sunlight fades to a dim blue glow, then disappears entirely. Photosynthesis becomes impossible. The familiar green world of plants and algae vanishes, replaced by something far more alien. This is where we encounter our first truly unsettling creatures. And they're unsettling for a very specific reason. They've begun to abandon the basic rules of how we think animals should look and behave. Let's start with transparency. In the Twilight Zone, many creatures have evolved to be completely see-through. The glass squid drifts through the water like a living ghost, its organs barely visible, its body so clear it seems to be made of water itself. Its eyes, dark, unblinking, alien, are often the only indication that you're looking at a living creature at all. Why is this so disturbing? Because transparency violates our basic expectations of life. We expect living things to have substance, weight, presence. When a creature is transparent, our brains struggle to process what we're seeing. Is it alive? Is it dead? Is it even there? But transparency is just the beginning. In the Twilight Zone, creatures have also discovered bioluminescence, the ability to create their own light. And they use this ability in ways that seem almost supernatural. The deep-sea anglerfish dangles a glowing lure in front of its mouth, like a fisherman with a lamp. To prey swimming in the darkness, this light appears to be food, a glowing morsel floating in the void. Only when they get close do they discover the truth. The light is attached to a mouth full of needle-sharp teeth, perfectly positioned to snap shut on anything that gets too close. This is horror at its most primal. The anglerfish has weaponized our most basic instinct, the attraction to light in darkness. It's taken something that represents safety and hope and turned it into a trap. It's like a monster that lures children with candy, or a spider that decorates its web to look like flowers. But the anglerfish's deception goes even deeper. That glowing lure isn't just a simple light. It's actually a specialized organ containing millions of bacteria that produce light through chemical reactions. The anglerfish has essentially domesticated bacteria, turning them into living light bulbs. It's carrying an alien colony inside its body, using other life forms as tools for hunting. Other Twilight Zone creatures have found even stranger uses for bioluminescence. The vampire squid, despite its terrifying name, doesn't actually suck blood. Instead, it feeds on marine snow, the constant drift of organic particles falling from the surface. But when threatened, it can turn itself inside out, covering its body with glowing spikes that flash in complex patterns. Imagine an animal that can literally invert its own body to become a pulsing, glowing threat display. Then there's the phenomenon called counterillumination. Some creatures, like certain squid and deep-sea sharks, cover their bellies with light-producing organs. They use these lights to match the faint glow coming from above, effectively erasing their silhouettes. From below, they become invisible, perfect ambush predators that can strike without warning. This is camouflage taken to an almost magical level. These creatures have learned to become one with the darkness itself, to manipulate light so perfectly that they can disappear even when you're looking straight at them. But perhaps the most unsettling aspect of the Twilight Zone is the daily migration. Every night, billions of creatures rise from the depths to feed at the surface. Every dawn, they descend back into darkness. This massive movement was so significant that during World War II, sonar operators detected what they thought was the ocean floor moving up and down. They were actually detecting the largest migration on Earth, larger than any movement of birds, mammals, or insects. Picture this: every night, an army of creatures emerges from the deep darkness below. They rise silently through the water column, their bodies glowing with alien light, their forms barely visible in the gloom. They feed, and then, as dawn approaches, they sink back into the abyss like ghosts returning to the grave. This is the Twilight Zone, a realm where creatures have abandoned the familiar forms of surface life and embraced something stranger. Where light is used as a weapon, where transparency is armor, where entire ecosystems rise and fall in ancient rhythms. But we're just getting started. Below the Twilight Zone lies something far worse, a realm of eternal darkness where life has had millions of years to evolve solutions to problems we can barely imagine. At 1,000 meters, we cross into the Midnight Zone, and all pretense of normalcy disappears. Here, in this realm stretching down to 4,000 meters, there is no light except what creatures make themselves. The pressure is crushing, hundreds of times greater than at the surface. Temperatures hover just above freezing. Food is so scarce that every calorie must be earned through cunning, brutality, or patience beyond human comprehension. This is where evolution becomes truly creative. This is where nightmares are born. Let's start with the Dragonfish, a creature that perfectly embodies the horror of the Midnight Zone. At first glance, it might not seem too terrifying, it's only about 6 inches long. But look closer, and you'll discover something deeply unsettling. The Dragonfish has evolved the ability to produce red bioluminescence. Why is this significant? Because in the deep sea, red light is essentially invisible to most creatures. Their eyes have adapted to detect blue and green light, but red wavelengths can't penetrate this deep naturally. So the Dragonfish has created its own private wavelength of light, a secret illumination that only it can see. Imagine a predator that hunts with infrared vision while everything else is blind to infrared light. The Dragonfish can shine its red light on potential prey, examining them in detail, tracking their movements, positioning itself for the perfect strike, all while remaining completely invisible to its victims. It's like a monster with night vision goggles hunting in complete darkness. But the Dragonfish's red light isn't its only horror. Its mouth is a nightmare of evolutionary engineering. The lower jaw can unhinge and extend, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth that point backward. Once something is caught in those jaws, there's no escape. The teeth are designed not just to pierce, but to hold, to drag the struggling prey deeper into the dragon's throat. And here's where it gets even more disturbing: the Dragonfish can swallow prey larger than itself. Its stomach can expand dramatically, and its throat can stretch to accommodate meals that would seem impossible for such a small predator. It's essentially a swimming mouth with an infinitely expanding stomach. Even more terrifying is how the Dragonfish reproduces. Like many deep-sea creatures, it faces a fundamental problem. In the vast darkness of the ocean, how do you find a mate? The solution the Dragonfish has evolved is as strange as it is disturbing. The male Dragonfish is born normal-sized, but as it matures, it begins to seek out a female. When it finds one, it doesn't court her in any way we'd recognize. Instead, it bites onto her body with specialized jaws and never lets go. Over time, its body begins to fuse with hers. Its organs degenerate. Its identity disappears. It becomes nothing more than a reproductive appendage, a living sperm factory permanently attached to the female's body. This is sexual parasitism taken to its absolute extreme. The male doesn't just die for reproduction, it literally dissolves into the female, becoming part of her body. It's like something out of body horror fiction, but it's real, and it happens in the deepest parts of our planet every day. But dragonfish aren't the only midnight zone creatures that have evolved disturbing solutions to the challenges of deep-sea life. Let's talk about the deep-sea anglerfish, the larger, more terrifying cousin of the Twilight Zone species we met earlier. The deep-sea anglerfish has taken the concept of bioluminescent luring to truly nightmarish extremes. Some species have lures that pulse and flash in complex patterns, mimicking the movement of small prey animals. Others have multiple lures, creating the illusion of a school of food swimming in the darkness. The largest species can grow to over 3 feet long, with mouths that can open wide enough to swallow prey half their own size. But it's not just their size that makes them terrifying, it's their patience. An anglerfish can remain motionless for hours, even days, waiting for the perfect victim. Its metabolism is so slow that it can survive on incredibly small amounts of food. It's essentially a living trap, a predator that has perfected the art of waiting. And when prey finally approaches that glowing lure, the anglerfish strikes with lightning speed. Its enormous jaws snap shut in milliseconds, and its backward-pointing teeth ensure that nothing escapes. The entire attack happens so fast that prey animals don't even have time to react. Perhaps even more unsettling are the creatures that have mastered the art of invisibility. In the midnight zone, we find fish with ultra-black skin that absorbs more than 99.5% of light that hits it. When a submarine spotlight shines directly on these creatures, they appear as moving voids, holes in reality that seem to absorb light itself. This ultra-black coloration is so effective that even when you know the fish is there, your eyes struggle to make out its shape or size. It's like looking at a creature-shaped absence, a predator made of pure darkness. The psychological effect is deeply disturbing. Our brains are wired to expect that when we shine light on something, we should be able to see it. These fish break that fundamental rule. But perhaps the most truly alien creatures of the midnight zone are the siphonophores. These aren't single animals at all, but colonies of specialized organisms that have joined together to function as one massive creature. The largest siphonophore ever recorded was longer than a blue whale, over 150 feet long, making it possibly the longest animal on Earth. But here's what makes siphonophores truly nightmarish: each part of the colony has a different function. Some parts are specialized for swimming, others for feeding, others for reproduction, others for defense. It's like a living ship made up of hundreds of specialized crew members, all connected by a single nervous system. And they're completely transparent. Imagine a creature the length of a football field, made of living glass, drifting silently through the darkness. Its body is lined with stinging cells that can deliver excruciating pain, and its feeding tentacles can extend for hundreds of feet in all directions, creating an invisible net of death that can trap and paralyze anything that blunders into it. The midnight zone has also given us creatures that seem to defy the basic laws of physics. Take the barrel-eye fish, with its transparent head and tubular eyes that can rotate within its skull. Its eyes point upward, constantly scanning the darkness above for the silhouettes of prey. But here's the truly bizarre part: its eyes can rotate forward when it needs to look at what it's eating. It's a fish with a transparent skull and eyes that work like periscopes. Or consider the gulper eel, which can unhinge its massive jaw to swallow prey larger than its own body. When it's not feeding, it looks like a relatively normal eel. But when food appears, it transforms into something that's more mouth than animal, its jaw stretching open like a living sleeping bag that can engulf fish many times its own size. These aren't just adaptations, they're violations of everything we think we know about how animals should be built. In the midnight zone, evolution has thrown out the rulebook and started experimenting with body plans that seem more like alien engineering than earthly biology. But as terrifying as the midnight zone creatures are, they're still not the most extreme examples of deep-sea horror. For that, we need to go deeper still, into realms where the very concept of life is stretched to its breaking point. At 4,000 meters deep, we enter the abyssal zone, and here we encounter one of the most disturbing phenomena in the deep ocean: gigantism. In the abyss, creatures grow to sizes that seem to mock the laws of nature. They become living giants in a world where logic suggests everything should be small and energy efficient. This is where we find the giant isopods, relatives of the pill bugs you might find in your garden, but grown to the size of footballs. These armor-plated scavengers scuttle across the seafloor on dozens of legs, their alien eyes reflecting any light that reaches them. They're living fossils, essentially unchanged for millions of years, and they can survive without food for years at a time. Picture encountering one of these creatures in the darkness. Your submarine's lights illuminate the seafloor, and suddenly, this massive, segmented thing comes into view, moving with the deliberate precision of a giant insect. It's like discovering that the bugs from your worst childhood nightmares have grown to the size of small dogs and learned to live forever. But giant isopods are just the beginning. The abyssal zone is home to amphipods, normally tiny shrimp-like creatures, that grow larger than your hand. Spider crabs with legs that can span 6 feet. Sea spiders that look like something from an alien planet, their impossibly long legs giving them the appearance of mechanical walking devices rather than living animals. And then there's the Japanese spider crab, the largest arthropod on Earth. With a leg span that can exceed 12 feet, it's like a living piece of construction equipment, all joints and angles and impossible length. When you see video footage of these creatures walking across the seafloor, they move with a mechanical precision that seems almost artificial. They don't look like animals, they look like alien machines designed for purposes we can't understand. But why do creatures grow so large in the abyss? Scientists call this phenomenon deep-sea gigantism, and while we don't fully understand it, the leading theories are almost as disturbing as the creatures themselves. One possibility is that in the extreme cold of the deep ocean, larger body size helps conserve energy. Bigger bodies have a lower surface area to volume ratio, which means they lose heat more slowly. So creatures grow huge not because they can, but because they have to, because only giants can survive in the endless cold. Another theory suggests that in the nutrient-poor environment of the abyss, being large gives you an advantage in competition for scarce resources. When a whale carcass falls from the surface, a rare feast in the desert of the deep, bigger creatures can fight off smaller ones and claim the lion's share of the food. But there's a third, more unsettling possibility, that these creatures grow large because there are fewer predators in the abyss to keep them in check. In the shallow ocean, fish are constantly being eaten by bigger fish, which keeps populations and sizes in balance. But in the abyss, the food web is so sparse that many creatures can grow to enormous sizes simply because there's nothing around to stop them. This means that the giants of the abyss might represent evolution unleashed, life growing to its absolute limits simply because it can. They're not constrained by the normal rules that keep surface creatures in check. They're living examples of what happens when evolution has no brakes. The abyssal zone also gives us some of the most patient predators on Earth. Take the Greenland shark, which can live for over 400 years, longer than any other vertebrate. These massive sharks move through the deep ocean like living ghosts, so slow that they seem almost motionless. But don't mistake their slowness for weakness. Greenland sharks have been found with seal remains in their stomachs, despite the fact that seals are much faster swimmers. How does a shark that moves like a glacier catch such agile prey? The theory is disturbing. They might hunt sleeping seals. They might be patient enough to find a seal resting at a breathing hole, then strike when their prey is vulnerable. Imagine a predator so patient that it can wait decades for the perfect opportunity. A creature that measures time not in minutes or hours, but in years and decades. The Greenland shark is essentially immortal by human standards, a living reminder that in the deep ocean, time itself works differently. But perhaps the most disturbing aspect of abyssal gigantism is what it suggests about life's potential. These creatures show us that given the right conditions, life can grow to almost any size. They're like a glimpse of an alternate Earth where the rules we take for granted simply don't apply. And they make us wonder, if life can grow this large in the crushing depths of our own planet, what might be lurking in the deeper oceans of worlds we haven't even discovered yet? The Abyssal Zone also introduces us to one of the most alien ecosystems on Earth, the whale fall community. When a whale dies and sinks to the abyssal seafloor, it doesn't just decompose, it becomes the foundation for an entire ecosystem that can last for decades. First come the scavengers, hagfish, sleeper sharks, and giant amphipods that strip the flesh from the carcass. Then come the bone-eating worms, called ostacs, which bore into the whale's skeleton and feed on the oils locked inside the bones. These worms are so specialized that they can't survive anywhere else, they've evolved specifically to consume dead whales. But here's the truly disturbing part, the ostacs worms exhibit extreme sexual dimorphism. The females are relatively large and do all the work of boring into bones and extracting nutrients. But the males are microscopic and live inside the females' bodies as internal parasites. A single female might host dozens of male parasites, using them solely for reproduction. It's like a horror story written by evolution itself, creatures that have evolved specifically to consume the dead, with males so reduced that they exist only as internal reproductive organs. And this entire alien ecosystem depends on death, specifically, the death of the ocean's largest creatures. The whale fall communities also remind us of something deeply unsettling about the Abyssal Zone, it's incredibly dependent on death from above. Unlike the surface ocean, where photosynthesis creates new energy, the abyss lives almost entirely on the remains of things that have died in the layers above. It's essentially a vast necropolis, a realm where death becomes the foundation of life. Every snowflake of marine snow, every sinking fish, every falling whale carcass becomes sustenance for creatures that have evolved specifically to live off death and decay. This gives the entire Abyssal Zone an almost supernatural quality. It's like an underwater underworld, populated by giants that feed on death and measure time in centuries. It's a realm that operates by rules so different from surface life that it might as well be an alien planet. But as strange and terrifying as the Abyssal Zone is, we still haven't reached the bottom. Below the abyssal plains lie the deepest places on Earth, trenches so deep and remote that they might as well be portals to another dimension. And in these ultimate depths, life has evolved forms so extreme that they challenge our very understanding of what's possible. Welcome to the Hadal Zone, named after Hades, the underworld of Greek mythology. Here, in the deepest trenches of the ocean, we find ourselves in conditions so extreme that life shouldn't be possible. Pressures exceed 1,100 times what we experience at the surface. Temperatures hover just above freezing. The trenches are carved by tectonic forces so violent that they represent scars in the earth itself. To put this in perspective, if Mount Everest were dropped into the Mariana Trench, its peak would still be more than a mile underwater. We're talking about depths so profound that they dwarf our tallest mountains. And yet, in these ultimate depths, we find life that has been forced to evolve solutions so extreme that they seem to belong more in science fiction than science fact. Let's start with the deepest living vertebrates ever discovered, the snailfish of the Hadal Zone. These creatures look impossibly fragile, translucent, gelatinous, with thin skin that seems like it would tear at the slightest touch. They appear to be made more of water than flesh. And yet they thrive at depths where the pressure would instantly crush any surface-dwelling creature. How do they survive? Their bodies contain no air spaces that could collapse under pressure. Their bones are replaced by flexible cartilage. Their cells are filled with special molecules that act like biological antifreeze, preventing their proteins from being crushed into uselessness. They've essentially become living liquid, creatures so adapted to extreme pressure that they would literally fall apart if brought to the surface. But it's not just their biology that's disturbing, it's their behavior. These deepest fish have been observed swarming in groups, moving together in ways that seem almost supernatural. In the pitch-black depths, hundreds of ghostly, translucent fish swimming in perfect synchronization. It's like encountering a school of aquatic ghosts, creatures so adapted to their alien environment that they barely seem alive in any way we'd recognize. The Hadal Zone also gives us creatures that seem to exist at the very edge of biological possibility. Take the amphipods that live in the deepest trenches, crustaceans that have grown to enormous sizes and developed behaviors that seem almost intelligent. These deep trench amphipods have been observed exhibiting what can only be described as swarm behavior. When bait is dropped into a trench, thousands of them appear seemingly from nowhere, covering the bait like a living carpet. They move together, feed together, and disappear together with a coordination that suggests some form of communication we don't understand. But here's what makes this truly disturbing: recent studies have found plastic fibers inside these deep trench amphipods. Think about what this means. These creatures live in the most remote places on Earth, in depths that no human had even visited until recently. And yet they've been contaminated by human waste. It means that our pollution has reached literally everywhere, even the closest thing to an alien world that our planet possesses. The discovery of plastic in Hadal Zone creatures is profoundly unsettling for another reason. It suggests that these remote ecosystems are more connected to the surface world than we realized. The idea that the deepest trenches were isolated from human impact was comforting. It meant there were still places on Earth that remained truly wild. But now we know that even the underworld of the ocean has been touched by human civilization. The Hadal Zone also hosts some of the strangest ecosystems on Earth, hydrothermal vents that spew superheated water and toxic chemicals from the Earth's core. Around these vents, life has found ways to survive not on sunlight or even marine snow, but on pure chemistry, using energy derived from hydrogen sulfide and methane to power entire food webs. The creatures that live around these vents seem to belong to a different planet entirely. Giant tube worms with no mouths, no stomachs, no digestive systems at all. Instead, they harbor billions of bacteria inside their bodies, bacteria that can convert toxic chemicals into usable energy. These worms are essentially living chemical factories, powered by reactions that would kill most surface life instantly. Then there are the vent crabs, pale and eyeless, scuttling around in superheated water that would cook any surface creature instantly. And vent mussels that filter feed on bacteria and chemicals rather than plankton. It's an entire ecosystem based on principles that are completely alien to surface life. But perhaps the most unsettling aspect of hydrothermal vent communities is how they challenge our understanding of life itself. These ecosystems don't depend on the sun. They don't need photosynthesis. They create energy through pure chemistry, using reactions that mirror what we think might have powered the very first life on Earth billions of years ago. This means that hydrothermal vents might be windows into the past, or the future. They show us that life can exist in conditions that are utterly hostile to everything we know. And they raise disturbing questions about what life might be like on other worlds, in places where the rules we take for granted simply don't apply. The creatures of the Hadal Zone also demonstrate evolution pushed to its absolute limits. Take the sea cucumbers that drift through the deepest trenches like biological parachutes, their bodies so gelatinous that they seem more like living clouds than animals. Or the deep trench jellyfish that have evolved bodies so efficient at conserving energy that they can survive on almost nothing, drifting through the darkness like organic machines designed for maximum efficiency. These creatures have solved problems that seem unsolvable. They've found ways to live in conditions that should be instantly lethal. They've evolved bodies that work in environments where the basic principles of surface biology simply don't apply. And that's what makes them so disturbing. They're proof that life is far stranger and more adaptable than we ever imagined. They show us that evolution, given enough time and pressure, can create solutions that seem to violate the basic rules of how life should work. The Hadal Zone creatures are living reminders that our planet still harbors mysteries that we're only beginning to understand. They exist in a realm so remote and extreme that studying them requires technology that can survive pressures that would crush submarines like tin cans. But perhaps the most frightening aspect of the Hadal Zone is what it suggests about life's potential. If creatures can evolve to survive in the deepest trenches of Earth, with pressures that would liquefy most life, temperatures near freezing, and no energy source except the chemicals seeping from the planet's core, what else might be possible? These creatures are like messages from an alien world, proof that life can exist in conditions that seem utterly impossible. They make us wonder what else might be lurking in the unexplored depths of our own planet, and what kinds of life might exist in the even more extreme environments of other worlds. Now that we've descended through all 5 zones of the ocean, from the familiar sunlight zone to the alien world of the Hadal trenches, we need to ask the fundamental question: why do deep-sea creatures get scarier the deeper you go? The answer isn't random. It's not just that nature decided to put all the monsters in the deep parts of the ocean. There are specific, terrifying reasons why evolution creates more disturbing creatures in the deeper zones, and understanding these reasons reveals something profound about life itself, and about the dark places where life is forced to find a way. First, there's the energy crisis. The deeper you go, the more scarce food becomes. In the sunlight zone, energy flows constantly from the sun, powering photosynthesis and creating abundant food webs. But in the deep ocean, there's no sunlight. No photosynthesis. No fresh energy being created. Everything depends on scraps falling from above, dead plankton, fish carcasses, marine snow. This scarcity forces creatures to become incredibly efficient at finding, catching, and consuming food. And efficiency in the deep ocean often means becoming specialized in ways that seem monstrous to us. The anglerfish's glowing lure isn't just a pretty light, it's a sophisticated deception system that maximizes the chances of getting a meal in a world where meals are desperately rare. The giant mouths, the unhinging jaws, the ability to swallow prey larger than yourself, these aren't random features. They're solutions to the problem of making every feeding opportunity count. When food might not appear again for weeks or months, you need to be able to eat anything that comes within reach, regardless of its size. This is why deep-sea creatures often look like living mouths with bodies attached. In the deep ocean, your mouth isn't just for eating, it's your most important survival tool. Second, there's the darkness problem. Without light, the normal rules of hunting and hiding break down completely. Surface predators rely on vision, speed, and camouflage based on color and pattern. But in the deep ocean, color is meaningless. Speed uses too much energy. And traditional camouflage doesn't work when there's no light to hide from. So deep-sea creatures have had to invent entirely new ways to hunt and hide. Bioluminescence becomes both weapon and tool. Transparency becomes armor. Ultra-black coloration becomes a way to absorb light so completely that you become invisible even when illuminated. These solutions work perfectly in the deep ocean, but they create creatures that violate our basic expectations of how animals should look and behave. When you can see through an animal's body, when it glows with its own light, when it can make itself darker than the darkness around it, you're looking at something that challenges the fundamental categories our brains use to understand living things. Third, there's the pressure problem. The deeper you go, the more crushing the pressure becomes. This forces creatures to abandon rigid body structures and develop flexible, gelatinous bodies that can withstand forces that would instantly kill surface creatures. But gelatinous bodies don't look like what we expect animals to look like. They seem unstable, temporary, like they might dissolve at any moment. They violate our expectation that living things should have definite boundaries, solid forms, recognizable shapes. The deep ocean creatures that have adapted to extreme pressure often look more like living liquids than solid animals. And there's something deeply unsettling about that, something that triggers our instinctive fear of things that don't fit our categories of solid and liquid, living and non-living. Fourth, there's the reproduction problem. In the vast darkness of the deep ocean, finding a mate becomes nearly impossible. The solutions evolution has found to this problem are often the most disturbing aspects of deep-sea life. Sexual parasitism, where males fuse permanently with females. Hermaphroditism, where creatures can change sex as needed. Extreme sexual dimorphism, where males and females are so different they barely seem like the same species. These solutions make perfect sense from an evolutionary perspective, but they challenge our basic assumptions about how reproduction should work. When we see creatures that have abandoned the familiar patterns of courtship and mating, that have evolved reproductive strategies that seem more like science fiction than biology, we're confronting the fact that the rules we think govern life are really just the rules that govern life in our particular environment. But there's a deeper reason why deep-sea creatures disturb us so much, and it has to do with what they represent. These creatures are proof that life can adapt to literally anything. They show us that given enough time and pressure, evolution can find solutions to problems that seem completely impossible. And that's both inspiring and terrifying. It's inspiring because it means life is incredibly resilient, incredibly creative, incredibly persistent. But it's terrifying because it means that the familiar forms of life we know, including our own, are really just one set of solutions among infinite possibilities. The creatures of the deep ocean are like glimpses of alien worlds. They show us what life looks like when it's forced to solve completely different problems than the ones surface life faces. They're proof that our planet harbors forms of existence that are truly alien, even though they share our evolutionary history. When we look at a transparent squid, or a fish that can turn itself inside out, or a creature that exists as a living chemical factory powered by toxic gases, we're not just looking at weird animals. We're looking at alternative possibilities for what life can be. We're seeing evolution's creativity unleashed in environments where the normal constraints simply don't apply. And perhaps most disturbing of all, we're seeing what life looks like when it's pushed to its absolute limits. The creatures of the deep ocean aren't just adapted to extreme environments, they're thriving in conditions that would instantly kill most life on Earth. They're living proof that life's boundaries are far wider than we ever imagined. This raises profound questions about life elsewhere in the universe. If creatures can evolve to survive in the crushing depths of our ocean, in conditions of extreme pressure, eternal darkness, and near-freezing temperatures, what kinds of life might exist on other worlds? What solutions might evolution find to problems we can't even imagine? The deep ocean creatures are scary because they force us to confront the fact that life is far stranger, far more adaptable, and far more creative than we ever realized. They're living reminders that our familiar world is really just a thin slice of possibility floating on top of realms that operate by completely different rules. As we ascend from the deepest trenches back toward the surface, back toward the familiar blue world of sunlight and normal creatures, it's worth reflecting on what we've discovered in the depths below. We've seen that the ocean zones create a perfect gradient of horror, each layer deeper and darker than the last, each presenting challenges that force evolution to create more extreme solutions. We've learned that the creatures of the deep aren't randomly scary, they're scary because the conditions they live in demand adaptations that push the boundaries of what we think life can be. We've encountered transparency and bioluminescence, gigantism and parasitism, creatures that seem made of living glass and others that appear to be constructed from darkness itself. We've seen animals that violate our basic categories of what life should look like, creatures that challenge our understanding of how biology works. But perhaps the most important thing we've learned is that these creatures are real. They're not science fiction monsters or fantasy beasts. They're our neighbors on this planet, sharing the same water that laps against our shores. They're products of the same evolutionary processes that created us, shaped by the same forces that have molded all life on Earth. The deep ocean reminds us that Earth is far stranger than we imagine. More than 80% of our ocean remains unexplored. Every deep-sea expedition brings back creatures that no human has ever seen before. Every dive reveals new forms of life that challenge our understanding of what's possible. In a world where we think we've mapped everything, where satellite imagery shows us every corner of the land surface, where we feel like Earth holds no more surprises, the deep ocean stands as proof that we still live on a planet of mysteries. A world where alien life doesn't require travel to other stars, it exists right here, in the depths beneath our feet. The creatures we've encountered in this journey are scary because they force us to confront the limitations of our own experience. They show us that the comfortable world of surface life, with its familiar rules and recognizable forms, is really just one thin slice of possibility floating on top of realms that operate by completely different principles. But they're also inspiring. They're proof that life is incredibly resilient, incredibly creative, incredibly determined to find a way to exist no matter how impossible the conditions seem. They show us that evolution is the greatest artist and engineer in the universe, capable of creating solutions that seem to violate the laws of physics and biology. As we return to the surface world, to the realm of sunlight and familiar creatures, we carry with us the knowledge that beneath our feet lies a universe of possibilities we're only beginning to understand. Every time we look at the ocean, we can remember that beneath those waves lies a world as alien as anything science fiction has ever imagined, and as real as the ground beneath our feet. The deep-sea creatures get scarier the deeper you go, because the deeper you go, the more extreme the challenges become, and the more extreme the solutions life finds to overcome them. But they're also beautiful in their strangeness, magnificent in their adaptations, and humbling in their reminder that life is far more creative than we ever dared to believe. In the words of the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, when you gaze long into an abyss, the abyss also gazes into you. The creatures of the deep ocean are that gaze looking back, alien, ancient, and utterly indifferent to our human understanding of how life should work. They remind us that we live on a planet that still holds wonders and terrors in equal measure, a world where the familiar and the impossible exist separated only by a few thousand meters of water. And they challenge us to keep exploring, keep discovering, keep pushing the boundaries of what we think we know about life itself. Because if these creatures have taught us anything, it's that life always finds a way, even in the deepest, darkest, most impossible places we can imagine.